Hey, welcome back to the Relentless Positivity Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Martin. Got my friend Billy Hofacker on here today. So he's going to tell us how we can have a more positive relationship with money. How's your relationship with money? Most of us, it's kind of weird, but hey, Billy, thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely, Joe, man. Love it. Love what you're doing. And I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, appreciate you being on. So tell us a little. So where did you grow up?
Yeah. So I actually, I don't know if it's interesting. I think it is. It's either totally interesting or totally not interesting, but I am 41 years old and I have never moved. So I was
Wow.
born in a place called Lindenhurst, New York. It's on Long Island. And I was the third of three. And in 2005, at age 25, my parents retired down to Atlanta, Georgia area, and I bought their home at that point, and I've been there ever since.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'm from Huntsville, and I currently live 4 minutes from where my original house is growing.
Okay.
I've lived a couple other places, but this is home, man. So I
Yep.
understand.
Yep.
Yeah. So tell us about what you do. What do you do for a living?
So what I do for a living, for the most part, is I'm a fitness professional. So here on Long Island, I own two brick and mortar facilities, and we do some other stuff as well. That's the bulk of it, but we do corporate training, and then the rest of it is financial coaching for other fit pros, financial coaching and some other types of coaching. Get a little bit outside of financial, a little bit on mentorship and lifestyle stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So
Yep.
let's get into your kind of your backstory, how you got into that. So you were at debt at one time. So what happened with that?
Yeah, tremendous amount of debt. So it was about 10 years ago. It's funny because I always say it was 10 years ago, but I was saying that last year, so it's probably like 11 years ago or
Yeah.
something like that. I was just, kind of just living my life. I was married, starting a family. I was either, about to have our first kid or my wife was pregnant right around that time. And I just was kind of living like I found out later, like a lot of people just kind of I thought things were good. Honestly, I was a personal trainer. I was also a professional martial artist and thought I was doing all right. And one day I was getting ready for work, got a knock on the door, and there's this guy standing on my porch. He's jacked up, tattoos on his neck. And I look past him into the street, and my brand new white Honda Accord was hooked up to his tow truck, and
Oh,
my car was being repossessed. And it was just a shock, and I didn't even realize like that was a thing. Like, it's like it wasn't like I was expecting it. It wasn't like I thought that was a danger I was in. It was like it was just that's how disorganized I was with our finances. And so after that, that led to me getting a little bit alert to what was going on, and then we dug a little deeper. We found out we had 130 something thousand dollars in non-mortgage debt, everything from medical bills, student loans on both sides, loans with family members, loans with friends, high interest credit card debts. I had you name it, we had it in terms of debt.
wow. So there's that something that you just woke up and you're like, oh my gosh, or did you kind of know you had some of that, or what was the process with that?
Yeah, it was a pretty good example of death by a thousand cuts. It
Yeah.
was like I remember like the first time I had no debt for a while, and I was actually doing pretty well for a while, which I think helped me in the long run because I kind of knew how I could be or how I could live. But I remember the first time we were somewhere, we're at the grocery store and we didn't quite have enough, and you just put a little bit on the credit card, and then,
Yeah.
that's how it starts. And then I remember I had a door, back door to my house. It was like broken. It was literally like wouldn't close. I didn't have the money, and like we need a door. So I went down to Lowe's and put on a credit card, and then kind of like one thing after the next, and then kind of becomes normal. And it wasn't something I was like thinking about. It just, up until that point, I wasn't really aware of it. I mean, if you would have asked me if I owed money, I probably would have said yes, but it wasn't something I thought about. It wasn't
Right.
something I was really aware of.
Man. Yeah. So death by a thousand cuts, it's probably how a lot of people get into debt. So
Yeah.
you see the guy's jacked up dude's going to tow your car, and you're like, all right, I got to do something. So where did you start? What was the first step?
Yeah, so once that happened, it really started with that decision. We were kind of stressed out to say the least, and my wife and I had some difficult conversations, and I guess the very first thing we did was we decided we had enough, and we were going to start doing things a little bit differently. And we had tried some other things. We did get with a financial planner at one point, and we just weren't there. At this point, we were like, I mean, I speak for myself, I was completely fed up. And one thing I had on my side, and I don't know if I realized it at the time, but I was like 30 years old or 31. And while of course I wish I was even younger when it happened, I felt like I did have some runway. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to be 40 one day either way. So I could either start taking these steps, towards a better future, or I can just kind of do what I'm doing, and who knows where I'd end up. Thankfully, we got on a much better plan. We ended up, getting a coach. We ended up getting accountability. We ended up, just kind of working a plan, and I guess we'll talk about the results too.
Yeah. So how did you find your coach? Was it referrals, or how did you find the guy to work with?
Yeah, so we actually met a guy in our small group church. He had mentioned Dave Ramsey, and I hadn't heard of him before that. And we kind of looked into it, and we signed up for his course through our church, and that's how we got started.
That's cool. So my wife's a huge Dave Ramsey fan. So we actually got to meet him one time, but
Yeah.
she always preached all this Dave Ramsey stuff. I guess my son was paying attention because when he was, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years old, someone asked him like, so what would you do if you got $50,000? And he said, well, I'd pay off my student loans first. He's like 5 years old. Like, man, you've been listening too much Dave Ramsey. So Dave Ramsey, yeah. So is that the kind of the concept you use to kind of start with a small debt and work from there?
Yeah, we used the debt snowball for our debt, and it worked really well for us. It was, yeah, we basically just stuck to the plan. We didn't. A lot of people, they kind of follow it, because we ended up, after that, we ended up like leading it several times and all that, and a lot of people have trouble like really embracing it, but it's just like follow the plan. The plan works.
Yeah. So talk about some of the sacrifices you guys had to make along the way.
Yeah, it's interesting because they are sacrifices, but I guess it's all relative, right? It all depends on how you look at it. Like, I don't really look at it like it was like poor me, or it was, of course it sounds good if I dramatize it, but we shared one car with the newborn, and I was running a business. So that was a sacrifice. We stopped eating out. We stopped really buying anything other than what we needed. We cut our cable, but we still don't have cable even now. And it's just,
Yeah.
we don't miss it. And what else did we do? We stopped, we stopped going away. We didn't do vacations for a while, and that was a little bit tricky and challenging, because everybody else is kind of doing stuff, going away, even family and stuff like that. But we just kind of kept focused on our goal and our vision. And one thing I'll say, for anybody listening, is I have, like, not one single part of me has any regret over any of the things we sacrificed. So that's the good news.
Yeah. So talk about relationship with money. What was your relationship with money growing up? So kind of what did you see?
I mean, it wasn't really talked about a lot. So you kind of learn, just from, what was not said. And, I just didn't really learn a lot about it. It was interesting because I was actually pretty good with money when I was younger. I remember I want to say I saved up about 20 grand when I was like 19. And, now I realize how good that was. I didn't realize
Yeah.
at the time, but I was kind of into it, saving money. I liked seeing it grow, and I eventually invested it in like tech stocks, and I ended up losing it all. So that was a hard lesson. But then I kind of overextended myself on a house, and I didn't have some of the foundational principles in place. I grew up in a Christian household, which I'm thankful for. And it just wasn't something that was, my parents were, loving parents, and it just wasn't something that was a big focus, like how to handle money, what to do with money. It was just kind of like, yeah, some people have it, some people don't. That was just kind of like the general attitude.
Yeah. So that's probably how a lot of people grow up. It's not
Yeah.
like your parents sit you down and talk money with you, like
Yeah.
rich dad, poor dad type stuff. But
Yep.
so if you got people listening right now, how could people improve their relationship with money?
I think, a lot of times money is, it's there's kind of other things going on. So I would say look at your relationship with money, and a lot of times, people might be, so let's say you're just overspending, right? It's like, what is that about? Where does that come from? What kind of messages did you hear growing up? And, maybe you're compensating for something. Maybe you're looking to kind of fulfill something that's the one of the things we learned, is that it's not gonna fulfill. Like, money will never satisfy, because there's always going to be more. It's like that whole thing, like, how much is enough? Just a little bit more. And it's so true. So it's just I would just encourage people to just try to find contentment and be thankful for what they have, and just realize that money's a tool. And and looking at some of those beliefs, I talk a lot about those false beliefs behind money and those root beliefs. And there's some examples I can give. There's a lot of them, but one of them is like, even in like some spiritual or religious circles, like money is the root of all evil. It's like, no, that's not what it says. And but that's kind of the way people were taught a lot of times in those circles. So it's kind of just learning that that's what they're telling themselves. And how can they kind of look at those, acknowledge them for what they are, which are just wrong, right? They're just not true. And or any, it's like that in any area, right? Like, I'm not good enough. So
Yeah.
I'm not good enough to make enough money or to make a lot of money. It's like, well, let's really break that down and acknowledge it for what it is. It's not true. It's a label, which it can never be true. Like, nobody's like not good enough. Like, right. It's like you decide, right? You get to choose like how much value you deliver out there in the world and how much you can make. And so you just kind of start replacing some of those beliefs and just start doing little things to kind of prove to yourself that those beliefs were wrong. Maybe I can never save money. It's like, maybe we'll start saving $10 and let's see if you still believe that. Cause now you're kind of proving yourself wrong and you can start replacing some of those beliefs. So those are just some of the things I would think through.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Beliefs are so important. So you nailed it on that one. And then just like you said, giving yourself little bits of evidence that you are that person. So man, that's
Yeah.
great
And then of
advice.
course, and you hear like hanging around, different people, and that helps, right? Getting around people that see things a little bit differently. And so I'm kind of attracted now to, I'm just real passionate about studying money and how different people do with it. And so I've studied a lot of people that are super successful financially, and you just see it's like the whole millionaire next door thing is true. For the most part, right? Like the guy that's driving the Toyota is more likely to be a millionaire than the guy driving the Mercedes. There's nothing wrong with the guy with the Mercedes, but just statistically, the other guy is more likely to have more wealth. And you start just kind of just realizing stuff like that. And then eventually you just get, confident with who you are and comfortable with who you are.
Yeah. That's kind of what you kind of got into. One of my questions I wanted to ask you is kind of who do you study? How did you become, a financial guy when before you were in debt? So how you mentioned Dave Ramsey. What are some more of the books and resources you went through?
Oh man, there's so many, man. I could tell you some of my favorite podcasts are great. I listen to a lot of podcasts. There's
Yeah.
one podcast in particular. It's called the Your Fitness Money Coach podcast. So
Yeah.
that's
I've heard
that's my
about that
that's
one.
that's my podcast. I listen to my own podcast. No, I like Millionaires Unveiled. There's a good show. It's just like in-depth stories about people that have transformed their finances. So I've learned from different people on that. Bigger Pockets is another good one. So just different podcasts, and I've worked with different coaches outside of the Ramsey organization. I've worked with them quite a bit. I was in EntreLeadership for a while, and then I've done some other stuff with them, but then other coaches as well. And as far as books, constantly reading books about money, which I recommend for everybody. I have a book coming out myself, but I recommend everybody, just learning more about it. You don't have to be like the world's best expert in it, but you need to know enough, because no one's going to really watch out for your money like you are. So I recommend just getting smarter about it, understanding how it works, understanding how to get and stay out of debt, how to build wealth. So I'll recommend a couple of books. So the Millionaire Next Door is a classic that I actually had read before all that happened to me, believe it or not. But that's one. Think and Grow Rich is probably going to pop up in any of those conversations. Another one is The Simple Path to Wealth. And of course, Dave Ramsey's books, he's got a bunch. I like the Financial Peace book, but he also has Total Money Makeover. So those are good. Ramit Sethi, I Will Teach You to Be Rich is another good book. So yeah, those are all good books.
Man, what a title! I'll teach you to be rich. That's
Yeah.
nailing it right there. That's
Yeah.
marketing good for you. So,
Yeah. What's interesting about some of those books is that a lot of them are just saying like really basic things, and and they can almost be written in one sentence, for the most part. It's like I can like share like the secret right now, right? The secret is to get and stay out of debt, to spend less than you make, and invest the difference. Right. Like if you only did that, right, you'd be crushing it. But, it's like anything else, like fitness, like you could say, oh, just exercise a little bit more, eat a little bit less. But then again, there's more to it, because there's different situations and there's mindsets and all that stuff.
sure. So let's say there's someone in debt right now. What would you say to them? Where would they start?
Yeah, so I always like one of the steps I talk about is taking inventory. I think it's good to get clear on where you are. So, just figuring out, how much debt you have. It could be as simple as pulling out a yellow pad, writing it down. You could use a spreadsheet. You could use a fancy app. I'm real old school. I like to just keep it simple, but I would just list all the debts. I would list, how much the total amount is. I would list the minimum monthly payments. I would list the interest rate, and I would just get all that information out there, and just kind of know what you're dealing with. And it's hard to make a plan when you don't know what you're dealing with. So once you know that, usually I find with myself and with the people I've worked with, it's less scary than you think. Even when we had so much debt, like when you really get it all out there, like, okay, like this is actually, somewhat manageable, and you can kind of see yourself taking those. It's just like taking that next step, just take that next step, and try to not get too overwhelmed, even when it is overwhelming, but just try to break it down, and then you start making your plan, and whether it's a debt snowball or however you're going to do it, you're just going to kind of knock them out one at a time, and just go through like that.
Yeah, that's great. I like how you just give it a name, actually know what you're up against. And
Yeah,
then I believe in the AAA philosophy of action alleviates anxiety. Once you start doing something towards it,
yeah,
you automatically start feeling better, even if it's something small. So that's great advice.
nice, I like that.
So I'm going to ask you just a few things about yourself now.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll get into your podcast in a minute because I want people to know we heard about it a little bit earlier. It's one of the top ones. So you mentioned it earlier. You were an MMA fighter back in the day. So
Yep.
who would you compare your style to in the guys in the current UFC right now, or UFC over the history? What would you compare your style to?
Yeah, so I was a Brazilian jiu-jitsu stylist. I now I'm a black belt, and that was like my whole background. And I did some other things. I did some like Muay Thai kickboxing when I was younger, and I dabbled in wrestling. And that was like I guess one of the regrets is I kind of wish I had a little bit of a stronger wrestling background when I got into it. So I guess I would be compared to anybody with, hopefully a pretty strong grappling background. Um, so I mean, again, I can't really, I don't feel right saying, it's a particular person, but there's guys that I would say I would like to have been compared to if I had gone further. Guys like Damian Maya, who are just like real,
Yeah.
that would be like, the more of the goal than actually, I can't say that was most similar to, but I guess style wise and what I would prefer and what I was good at, I would say that kind of thing.
All right. What was your go-to move in jiu-jitsu?
I would say Kimura. Yeah. Do you train?
Yeah, you're talking to a blue belt. It's practically a black belt. I mean, it's pretty
Oh,
much the same thing.
nice, nice, dude. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would say Kimura is probably that's probably how I would answer that. I do like triangle chokes too.
Yeah, you got long legs. That's good,
Yeah.
right? You got the long
Yep.
legs. Yeah. So let's talk about your family a little bit. So how many kids do you have?
So I have four.
4 kids. You better be good with money.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. I have four. Yeah, I had three girls, and then finally got a little boy. He's 8 months now.
Nice, man. Congrats. You got a pandemic baby. That's on top of it, man. That's
I
awesome.
know. I know.
That's great. So, and what do you like to do in your free time? If you have free time, what do you do in your free time?
Yeah, honestly, I'm pretty simple, man. I like spending time with the family, whatever we're doing. It could be just hanging out, sitting around, hanging out, playing games. Um, yeah, pretty simple stuff. If it's like we're going in end of June, we're gonna go on a little camping thing, and just kind of being in a cabin, making food together, just doing stuff together. That's kind of really what brings me joy. I really like reading. I enjoy it. I love learning the topics that are obviously that are interesting to me. Of jujitsu, you mentioned, is something I like to do. And I like personal development. I just like it for what it is. I like personal growth. So I'm constantly looking into different things, whether it's public speaking or just emotional growth and health and stuff like that. I love spending time with my wife. Um, yeah, I'm thinking those are the things. I like to work out. I like to be outside. I like to go for walks. I like to just sometimes in the morning, I just like to like sit there and just be there. Like that's one of my
Yeah,
favorite things to do, believe it or not.
I hear you, man. Just
Yeah.
if you're a busy person, you can
Yeah.
appreciate that. You
Yep.
just sit, and with 4 kids, you can probably appreciate that quiet, right? So,
Yeah, exactly.
uh, tell me a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, so my podcast is called the Your Fitness Money Coach Podcast, And it just came out of similar to what you said when I asked you. And it's like I really just enjoy talking to people, learning their stories. It's primarily a financial podcast, but I would say financial / personal development. I've had different types of guests. I had a real estate expert on there, just trying to expose my audience to different aspects to money. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can become successful financially, and it's good to learn different ways. And one way might work for one might work for another. So, the guests range from experts in a particular aspect of finances to fitness professionals that have, accomplished different things and sharing their stories. And yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, so it's great. I've listened to it. It's stuff that's kind of geared towards fitness people, but there's basic concepts that anyone can use in there. That's what I like about it.
Yeah, yeah, we actually have a decent amount of listeners that aren't fit pros. Like a lot of my clients listen to it, so it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's I agree. It's like it's more of the marketing like for fit pros, but the content applies across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. So give the letter. And I'll link that in show notes so you guys can check it out. So he's had some really great guests. This guy named Joe Martin that's on there. I heard that was pretty
Exactly.
killer. So yeah. But hey man, well, thank you so much for being on. Do you have any other words of wisdom before you head out?
Yes, I do, because it's something I'm going to write about. I was going to write about it today, didn't get a chance, so I'm going to write about it tomorrow. So I'll just share. Maybe it'll help somebody. I love this. I heard John Maxwell say it recently, and then I read it in where did I read it? I read it in Andy Stanley book, Visioneering, and he talks about success. Like we think of success kind of wrong, and we think of success as, like, use MMA as an example. Like the guy who won the MMA championship, like he looks successful, right? The guy who became a millionaire, the guy who has this awesome family, and that's like the result. That's the benchmark, but the success is actually in the things that led up to that. And I just think that's so powerful, because we don't always think of it that way. Like if I start saving $5 a month when I've never saved any money before, like that's actually successful. It
Sure.
doesn't matter that I'm not a millionaire yet. What matters is that I'm doing that and I'm successful in doing that. So it just really hit me pretty hard, because an achievement guy. So I want to knock this stuff out. I want to
Yeah.
win. I want to do, but really that's not what it's about. It's about that little conversation I have with my 3-year-old that nobody ever knows about. Like that's success. So
Yeah.
I just hope that encourages you, if you're out there and you're like just looking to kind of hit that next target, just thinking about like the daily activities and finding success in that.
That's great, man. That's a great note to end on right there. And we'll link that in the show notes, your podcast and your fitness stuff, and also your upcoming book, man. When it comes out, let me know. We'll get the word out about that as well.
Awesome, man. I'm excited about that. Yeah, thanks so much.
Hey, appreciate you coming on, man. You have a great day.
You too, Joe. Thank you.